Welcome to a tutorial video on learning Python. In this video I'm going to talk about lists. Lists in Python are a way of grouping things together. They are sometimes called arrays in other programming languages, but they are a way to group different values in one collection. Lists in Python are heterogeneous, complex data structures. What that means is they can hold different values. We reviewed in the previous video that a variable can hold different types of values. They can hold integers, whole numbers, strings, things enclosed within quotation marks, as well as decimal values. If we want to put all of those different values in one thing, in one variable, we do that through using a list. So we see here, over here in example code, list example, the name of a variable, on line 2. We are defining a list using opening and closing square brackets right here. So it contains an integer 1, a decimal 3.4, and a string value, opening and closing quotations around this. This is a list. And I mentioned it's heterogeneous, that is, it can contain different types. So we see here our list defined with square brackets, opening and closing, list example. Well, we can access things within the list using its position. Positions start in Python from 0. The first entry is the 0 position. So if we want to see the 0 position, let's run this code. And we see the first position, 0, is 1. When we're accessing this first position, we're using opening and closing square brackets at the end of the variable. This says, in this variable, look for this position. So on line 4, over here on the right, we see the value 1, which is the first position, 0. If we wanted to see the second position, the third value, we put 2 here and we see hello over here on the right hand side. This is hello, the string of 0, 1, 2. The third entry, the second position of this list. So we can also change the values in a list by using the same syntax. Notice we can access the values by using the square brackets around it to get a value out. Hey, what is that at this position? We can also change the value in that position using the same thing. We see down here on line 7, that's what's happening. List example, index 1, that is the second entry, first position, is now changed to 4.5. So down here, let's say, hey, what is in this position 1? Well, it's now 4.5, which we see over here on the right-hand side. So we can access values by using their position, say, hey, what's at this position 0, position 1, 2, etc. We can also change them by using the same method. So we see here list example 1, and we can change that value, as we saw here. We can also append new values and remove values. So if we don't want to go through using positions, or if we don't know the positions, for example, maybe the code was the data was created something else, and we're writing some code to deal with that, we can use append and remove in the same manner. So we see here append, that would place new item at the end, appending to the end. And we see down here, new item is at the end, it's now 3. As we saw, 0, 1, 2, appending a new one would be 3. We can also remove it using the value. So we say, hey, go look for a string called new item and remove it. And we can do that here, but we don't see the result. So, as a review of all this, as we talked about in the previous video, we can have different values in variables: integers, whole numbers, strings, and decimals. If we want to group them all together, we do that through a list. A list is a collection of things, basically. And we do that through defining it using square brackets. So we defined a list with 3 entries, 1, 3.4, and hello. We then can access entries within that list using square brackets and their position, sometimes called their index. I've used that word interchangeably here. But they start at 0. The first index is 0 and it increases from there. So we saw 0 was 1, 2 was hello, starting at 0, 1, 2. We can also change the values within a list using that same syntax. We say in this position or in this index, change this value to something else, which we saw here on line 7. We can change the value of an index or position 1, which was 3.4, is now 4.5, starting on the end of line 7. And we saw that over here when we printed that value. We can also append and remove items in case we don't know positions. Using this functionality, we can append, for example, new item right here, 3, new item, and using remove, work through the same way of finding if a value matches the value we give to remove, removing that value from the list. Thanks for watching.